After the success of Star Trek First Contact, Paramount were already planning the third Next Generation film. For this film, they wanted it to be more light-hearted in tone. The studio wanted the sequel to be the same tone and style of Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, which was the franchise's most successful film. For Star Trek Insurrection, the studio would give the director and the production team more freedom and less interference. However, this would not stop Star Trek Insurrection from becoming one of the most disappointing and forgettable films of the Star Trek franchise. For this film, writers Ronald D. Moore and Brannon Braga would be unavailable. Producer Rick Berman hired Star Trek writer and producer Michael Piller to write the film. Berman and Piller agreed that the film needed to be lighter in tone. There were a number of film titles floating around, including titles like Time Stands Still, Forever, Pathfinder, Prime Directive, The Enemy Within, and Sacred Honor, which was Piller's favorite title, but the studio felt it was too religious. Piller had many ideas. His main story theme was to have a Fountain of Youth style story, which would be a fairy tale film, mixed in with the style of the classic novel, Hearts of Darkness. Piller would name the first draft of the script, Hearts of Lightness. He retitled the script Stardust, which was a name inspired by a Nat King Cole song. The treatment with the title Stardust would feature Picard chasing a former classmate named Duffy to the Fountain of Youth. They would get younger and younger until they find 10-year-olds who live there. The Romulans would be the protagonists, and the 10-year-olds would end up fighting them. At the end, Picard gets arrested and is stripped of his rank by Starfleet due to his actions. Q would also show up. The idea to have Q in the film was suggested by director Jonathan Frakes, who wanted actor John Delancey to reprise his role as Q. Sadly, nothing ever happened with this idea, which greatly disappointed Frakes. After Jonathan Frakes' enormous success with directing First Contact, he was assigned yet again to direct, and why not? He was the perfect director to direct a Star Trek film. Michael Piller, after having a number of script ideas scrapped, kept coming out with more story ideas with producer Rick Berman. Piller kept the Fountain of Youth idea through every draft. One idea would see the return of Data's brother, Lore, who was last seen in the Next Generation two-parter, Descent. This draft was similar in tone to Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. In other ideas, Berman suggested that Data become a renegade crew member that Picard must deal with. Actor Patrick Stewart was even brought on board as associate producer, and Stewart would add his input into the script. He would be responsible for the final version of the story. He thought Piller's second version of the script was just an expanded TV episode of the show and didn't have the scope of a Star Trek movie. One draft which Stewart would work with Piller on would see Picard killing Data earlier in the film. Later, Data would be resurrected to help the captain in the finale. It was to ensure that if Spiner continued the role, writers could work around the death. Brent Spiner was fully behind the idea of killing off Data because he felt he was getting too old to play the character. This idea was vetoed by Patrick Stewart. Spiner's script came with a note reading "Better luck next time." Spiner, however, would get his wish in the following Star Trek film, Nemesis. Piller would work on more rewrites on the script, and he would create a number of subplots. Stewart loved Piller's Fountain of Youth idea and thought it should be expanded upon, and thought Picard should have a love interest and become more of an action hero. The idea of a race of 10-year-olds became the Baku people, a race which was blessed with eternal middle age. Their enemies, the Sonar, were also added. Eventually Piller, Berman and Stewart all agreed on a final script. The final script would have Captain Picard learning of a plot led by the race of the Sonar and the Federation to relocate the peaceful Baku from their planet, which holds the key to eternal youth, and relocate them to another planet. Picard and his crew would end up rebelling to protect the Baku and stop the Sonar from taking control of the Baku's home planet. Patrick Stewart originally thought that the Baku should leave the planet in the film. Adding to the final script was Data spending the bulk of the film learning how to have fun and play. A lot of plot elements in the script were recycled from a number of Star Trek episodes, including the Next Generation episode, Homeward, where the people get relocated through the use of the holodeck. The use of the duck blind to observe cultures was previously used in the episode Who Watches the Watchers. When the script was finalized and approved, the studio gave Piller a few suggestions, including a resolution to the Troy and Riker romance, and for the character of Reginald Barclay to be replaced with expanded roles for Beverly Crusher. No title had been picked yet, so the script was called Star Trek IX. They named the script Star Trek Revolution, but finally decided on the title, Star Trek Insurrection. Alan Spencer, a friend of Piller, suggested the title of Insurrection during pre-production. There were a number of scenes planned for Star Trek Insurrection, but many scenes were scrapped, including a chase sequence between Picard and Rorfo. However, the production team thought this scene would be a straight rip-off of Return of the Jedi's iconic speeder bike sequence. All of the original Next Generation cast members would of course return. Many actors had been considered for the roles of the Sonar Leader, Adar Rorfo. They would decide on Oscar-winning actor F. Murray Abraham, who was given the role without an audition. Abraham loved the chance to work with Patrick Stewart. Crazy to think, for the role of Rorfo, originally they were thinking of casting Arnold Schwarzenegger. Abraham praised his makeup and prosthetics, saying, "The idea that you can be somebody else behind the mask is an extraordinary feeling." Makeup effects were created by Michael Westmore. New makeup for new alien races was also created. Director Frakes said in an interview that in the scene in the film where Rorfo has his skin folded over his head, producer Rick Berman and several of the makeup artists had visited the plastic surgery clinic and watched surgeries being performed to get ideas for the scene. For the role of the main Baku woman and Picard's love interest, Anij, Tony Award-winning stage actress Donna Murphy was chosen and cast out of many other actresses. Frakes thought she was the best out of the 80 actresses who auditioned. Sally Field was originally considered for the part of Anij. For the role of Starfleet Admiral Doherty, Anthony Zerber was cast. Zerber originally auditioned for the role of Rorfo, but was thought to be more suited to the role of the Admiral. Actor Michael Horton would return as Tactical Officer Lieutenant Daniels, which he portrayed in First Contact. Tom Morello, the guitarist from Rage Against the Machine, played a sonar warrior. There were many scenes cut from the film. One scene cut that was shot was a scene featuring the DS9 Ferengi characters Rom and Quark. They were originally going to feature at the end of the film, setting up timeshares on the Baku planet. The special effects in outer space were completely computer generated, which was a first for a Star Trek film. Industrial Light and Magic had always provided the visual effects for most of the Star Trek films. This time, however, they did not return for Insurrection because ILM were busy working on the films Deep Impact and Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The effects ended up being made at Santa Barbara Studios, with additional effects by Blue Sky Productions. Herman Zimmerman was hired again as production designer. He and the designers had 3 months to design and construct 55 full sets for the film. Insurrection probably had the most scenery ever built for a Star Trek motion picture, because almost every set was brand new. Sets from the television series Star Trek Voyager and Star Trek Deep Space Nine were reused and redressed. Captain Janeway's quarters became Picard's quarters, the Voyager briefing room became Riker's quarters, and part of the Voyager engineering set became the Enterprise library. The interior of the scout ship, manned by Data, was originally the cockpit of the Voyager's shuttlecraft. Filming began on March 31st of 1998 and concluded on July the 2nd. According to Frakes, half of the time shooting was spent on location. The scenes in which the Enterprise crew and the Baku village take refuge in the mountains were shot on location above Lake Sabrina in the Sierra Nevada, in locations which could only be reached by helicopter. The Baku village was fully built on location at Lake Sherwood, California, but suffered weather damage during production. Stage 15 on the Paramount lot was used for the climatic fight scene between Picard and Rorfo. Because of the dangers of the 4-story scaffolding-like set, the actors were attached by safety cables at all times. Paramount's B-Tank, which was used in Star Trek IV The Voyage Home, was used to shoot footage of Picard, Data and Anij at the Baku Lake for a scene in which Data walks along a lake bed. The underwater scene required Spiner to wear more makeup than usual because it needed to be waterproof. Paramount screened the movie to test audiences. Some liked aspects of the movie, but overall, the film didn't test very well at all. Viewers found the ending to be very disappointing, and they found the film to be lacking in scope. Many wanted a large-scale epic space battle. The studio felt the same way. A revised ending was filmed involving a last-minute rescue. The studio also ordered the production team to add in a big space battle. Who can forget the famous Riker maneuver and his use of the PC joystick during the final battle scenes? There were many other scenes the production team wanted to add, but the studio wanted the film released as soon as possible, so no other improvements were made to the film. Many scenes in the film had to be dropped due to the film's rushed release. According to the cast of the movie, a lot of those scenes that were cut were some of the best scenes. Maybe these scenes should have been used. It would have made a vast improvement to the film. Jerry Goldsmith's score is once again amazing, adding new themes and old familiar themes to the mix. Star Trek Insurrection premiered at the 1998 Cine Vegas Film Festival. The film was released in the US and Canada on December the 11th, 1998. Actress Marina Sirtis has stated that although she enjoyed working with the cast and crew, Star Trek Insurrection wasn't her favourite Star Trek film, and she even stated she fell asleep while watching the film at the premiere screening. Even though Insurrection didn't do well at the box office, like First Contact and Generations, the film grossed $22.4 million over the opening weekend, the most of any film during that period. Insurrection was the highest grossing film during the first week of its release in the United States, and stayed in the top 10 for a further 3 weeks. Reviews were mixed, but mainly negative. While many praised Brake's directing and the computer-generated special effects, many critics found the film too much like an above-average double episode of a TV show. However, I believe the script, storyline, and the film's short running time is the main issue of this film. They could have easily added those scenes that got cut. For me, it was a nice little solid film to enjoy and watch, but it offers very little of that wow factor for me. The acting is excellent, and the cast, especially the Next Generation regulars, all have a wonderful connection and natural chemistry together. While the main villain, played by F. Murray Abraham, can get a little over the top during the film, I did enjoy some aspects of his performance. The effects for the film are incredible, as well as the makeup effects of the aliens, especially the stretched faces of the sonar. Michael Westmore and the makeup crew did a magnificent job. The crew feeling more young due to the healing qualities of the planet is a nice little touch, and offers some touching if not funny moments in the film. Geordie LaForge receiving his sight is a lovely moment, especially Goldsmith's beautiful music in the background. I did like it when Riker and Troy fall in love again. It left me wondering though, what happened to Troy's relationship with Worf, which was seen in the Next Generation double episode finale, All Good Things. I think the majority of Star Trek fans, unfortunately, seem to care less for this film. Star Trek Insurrection isn't terrible. It has some engaging moments. I don't think it's the worst. It's very watchable and enjoyable, but nothing overly amazing and memorable. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. My name's Jonathan. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to support the channel on Patreon, click on the link below.